a lot of conversations that's supposed to enable us know much more about Ghana and also try to whip up the interest of patriotism in us. So last Tuesday, we were joined, in the studios by Amakum Nana Edu Bafuasari, and we talked about the role of chiefs in national development. So during the conversation, some academics, including Dr. Ali Yakubu Nyaaba, called me and said, "This is my area, and I would like to have a bite at it." And I was so excited about it because if a historian tells you, "I want to have a bite at this," it means that it's going to enable us to get to understand the history behind the role of chiefs and how well they've done in the past or how poorly they've performed in the past and stuff like that. So I was excited when Doctor called, and he was not the only one who called actually. I had some politicians also call, some other lecturers also called. So I'm glad to have you with us in the studios of Love 99.5. But during that conversation, with Amakum Hine, he talked about the fact that their powers, seems to have been curtailed. They don't have too much powers anymore. He also went on to make mention of the fact that, well, like some others have suggested, if they're giving more responsibilities, even in terms of resources, they can bring more development to their communities. So the question I'm asking this morning is, between the politician and the chief, who do you trust to bring you more development, given the opportunity? Between the two, the politicians and the chiefs, who can bring us the development at the pace and the speed that we are looking for. But help us appreciate where we've come from. So Amakum Henry said that they don't have too much power like before. So tell us about years ago. Take us down memory lane. How much power did chiefs have? How much development did they bring? How well did they perform years ago?
Thank you very, very much, Dave. And I am happy to be talking about this subject matter. I'll try as much as possible not to be so passionate and emotional about it. And I'll try as much as possible not to be too academic about it, so that we can have a regular, dispassionate conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you ask the public to choose between the politician and the chiefs, I will give you an answer before I proceed to give you the historical tangent. Before the British colonial administration started effective colonialism in Ghana here, they were very thoughtful about getting to know the most appropriate way to do what they wanted to do. If today we have Rattray Park here, they brought an anthropologist called R.S. Rattray to study the culture of the people. They intend to do what they wanted to do. And then he wrote very interesting history about the culture of the people, and you should read it. And it laid the foundation for what the British could appropriately adopt to administer the territories in a manner that was going to be useful to them. I'm talking about the British. I'm saying, so he wrote the culture of the Asante, and then he wrote the culture of the North, which he called the tribes of the Asante hinterlands. That's why today we are always here in Kumasi. And, they had Ekin Ferguson to survey. I'm just giving you this background to tell you that they did not just start doing what they did without knowing what was appropriate to do. And a British colonial official in the 1930s appropriately said that if you want to govern a people and then to govern them in a sustainable and beneficial manner, you must utilize the indigenous institutions. So it was not by accident that they decided to use the traditional political institutions. But let me talk about the substantive matter before we come back to this substantive question that you've just asked. Yeah, like any other group of people, Ghana and Africa at large developed political systems gradually. A society starts from hunting and gatherers. You get free fruits, you get free wild animals, so nobody is thinking about settling. So you move along as there is scarcity where you are, and nobody is preventing you from going anywhere. At a point in time when the population is increasing, there's restrictions. You can't go everywhere. So you start settling. And once you settle, you decide to manipulate that environment to your advantage in whatever form that can make you survive. And once the population keep increasing, then there is need for political organization so that there won't be chaos. So Africa was evolving gradually from this stage. But it is important to note that by the time all the European countries knew Africa and Ghana, Africa had reached its peak. I'm saying that we had developed very complex political systems, reminiscent of any other political system that the Europeans knew before us. And if you continually heard the Asante and the British, then you will notice that it is because it is the last of the major states to develop in West Africa, and particularly Ghana. So that means there had been states. And the features of these states were as comprehensive as you find in the modern states, where there is a political leader who was aided by a council, and the council are made up of other sub-political leaders. And then I must emphasize the fact that these chiefs were elected by an electoral college, not by the general population, by people who were. So the selection of chiefs says this. Erudite scholar and politician K.A. Bougia was the first person in Ghana who wrote his thesis in Oxford about the institution, the Chieftaincy institution, and the changes that was happening to it, as at the time around the 1940s, the 1950s, that he was studying it. And then he mentioned that the chief wielded judicial, religious, economic, and political power. And these structures were grounded on custom. And the people revered the chief, and the chief in turn also made sure that he made the people comfortable, because it was his duty. It was a duty. Let me just give you a microscope of the relationship between chiefs and their subjects then. Even if you are a bad person, a young man who is not well mannered, they say when you give birth, you will stop. You see, the moment you give birth, you begin to think that you need to be a role model, you need to be responsible. No matter how the individual was, when you ascend the throne to lead your people, you became responsible. You became somebody who was conscious of playing that role model, this thing for your subjects. And then there were various forms of social control. Today we are battling with corruption. We've tried all sorts of things, but we don't seem to get away. The systems of social control made traditional rulers intrinsically less corrupt. That is one. And then the system of property holding, until very recently, and if you want me to give you the historical tangent, after answering this question, maybe I should give you the historical tangent, how the institution has metamorphosed. But let me stay within this context and just conclude that the chief did everything. He provided for his people, and the people also provided for him.
According to history, how well did they perform? How well did they do?
You see, to be very honest with you, we didn't have the option not to do well.
Like you didn't have the option.
There was no option not to do well.
Okay.
And then the system allowed for you to be destooled if you don't do well. You know, you were very conscious about the gods and the people.
Okay.
The people can destool you. The gods
will deal with you as well.
Can disable you. So they had no option not to do well. I wouldn't say they did relatively better or worse, but it looks like even if they had the potential not to do well, the system worked in a manner that left very little room to do so. Like I told you, there was no individual property holding for a traditional ruler to think about amassing wealth. You came and met property. You enjoyed as you were supposed to do. Add to, you were always thinking about posterity. One key thing you should know is that even if you take it off the larger picture, individuals, family, even family systems in Africa here, in Ghana here, if you came and then you led the family, not even the whole community, you met property, your duty was to ensure that you enjoyed, added to the property. You always had posterity in mind. There is no step that you take, and then the gods were always there watching.
And you were not selfish. You were not self-centered. And like you said,
they could have been, but they didn't have the option.
You didn't have the option.
Yes.
So this is Love in the Morning. It's here on Love 99.5, and we're having this conversation this morning with, Dr. Ali Yakubu Nyaaba. He's a senior lecturer, Department of History and Political Studies, KNUST. We want to understand the role of chieftaincy in nation building from the history and political, studies viewpoint or perspective. And he's giving us the role of chiefs years ago and how well they did. And he said they had no option as chiefs. They had no option. They had to fend for themselves and also for their people and also think for the future. All right? And you were being watched by the gods. You were also being watched by people who put you in that office, and they could destool you. Unfortunately, we lost it. How did that happen?
Yeah, like I was telling you, even at the time that Bougia was writing his thesis, one of the very interesting things that he said is that he has seen what has happened to the institution, but he has decided to focus on what he intended to research by looking at the institution in the 1940s. But as at the 1960s, when he was publishing his book, he said he's aware of how far the institution have come, but he's just... So let me just tell you. So these were people who wielded power in all facets of life. And at a point in time, and here reference must be made to Asante, because I noticed from most of your programs that you usually want to make the regional focus, and we are very fortunate to be dealing with Asante because it is peculiarly unique, and we should not be the group here in this region be moaning about the relevance of the institution, because it is the yardstick for other traditional rulers. But the substantive issue is that along the line, when the Europeans came to Ghana, and eventually by the early 19th century, the early 20th century, late 19th century, when they intended to establish colonialism, there was a need to find a way to do it, like I was telling you. And they eventually settled on the indirect rule system, where they will allow the structures, the political structures, the indigenous political structures to work, while they manipulate it to suit what they wanted for the colonial administration. So like the British colonial officials said in the 1930s, if you wanted the system to work well, if you wanted the system to be sustainable,
utilize the indigenous institutions.
You must use the indigenous structures. They acknowledge that. So they began manipulating. So these chiefs did not work because in Asante in particular, royalty, we had social stratas that put royals on top here, free persons and unfree persons, and it gave room for such royal family. They did not work. the people worked and then fed and took care of the royal family, while the royal family too, who was the liaison between the people and the gods, ensured that the things that were necessary to ensure prosperity was done. So, for instance, things that you would do that will defile the land, they prevented it. So, in sum, the chiefs ensured that there was prosperity, and then the people also took care of the chief. Then, along the line, when the British had to use this institution for the indirect rule system, they started manipulating it, introducing things that were hitherto unknown to the people. A kind of tax system that made the chiefs not too pleasant in front of their subjects, because they were not used to the kind of British tax system that the chiefs were bringing. A kind of labor system where they asked the chief that you should bring this number of people to come in, free labor, bring them. So they also brought westernization that was spearheaded by Christianity. So people began to see the chief's role as idolatry, sort of. So there was it got to a point that the chiefs were not as wealthy as they had to be. They were hard up. They had to find other means. And that is when individual property owning started, because chiefs started becoming cocoa farmers. They started establishing companies. They started building houses to rent to strangers. So that, because what they used to get
they're not getting any more.
So
they needed to find alternatives.
They needed to find alternatives, and it became an issue in Asanteman in particular, and they had to deal with it. At a point in time, there was a high-profile council meeting to discuss stool property and individual property.
Okay. Well, listeners, I would like to hear from you as well. We'll be activating the phone lines shortly, but join us on our WhatsApp line with your voice notes, with your thoughts. We've been giving some history as to the role of chiefs years ago and how come they lost it. But I just want to know from you. I mean, you heard us speak to Amakom Hene last Tuesday, and he says that, listen, if chiefs were given a little bit more power, if chiefs were giving more resources, they can also bring development to their communities. And I'm asking this question. Between the politician and the chiefs, who do you believe or who do you trust can bring us the development that we're looking for? Who do you trust? So send us voice notes. Our number is 05511119995. 05511119995. Right? But let me throw in this question. When we got independence, some would have said that being Ghanaians, being Africans and being traditionalists, we would appreciate our traditions and our culture. But interestingly, I read that Nkrumah even bestowed some chiefs and brought in people who were not from the royal family to be chiefs. How did that happen?
Yeah, you have to appreciate the politics of that era. After the 1948 riots, there was the Watson Commission and eventually the Kuzi Committee that were formed to look into those issues and then make recommendations. Most of the young people who went to testify to these commissions, there were these young, exuberant people who saw the chiefs as cronies to the colonial administration they were fighting. You understand? Because, the colonial administration used the indigenous political structures. They used these chiefs to do what they were doing. So they testified against these chiefs that if these chiefs were cronies to the colonial administration. Eventually, the Kuzi Committee that was formed after the Watson Commission had membership who came from these aristocrats. So they sought to maintain the institution despite those things that the youth had testified to. Nkrumah and the CPP watched these proceedings. From 1951, Nkrumah became the leader of government business, 1954, 1957, before independence. So it was a kind of a rival institution transiting from colonialism to independence. For instance, most of the aristocrats who were basically UGCC members favored federation that will continue to make the chiefs independent in their politics. The CPP and Nkrumah favored a unitary government that will centralize authority in the secular and a new political dispensation that we were moving into. And you see, chiefs started playing into these politics from that time. Those chiefs who were not happy with the system decided to join Nkrumah, because when Nkrumah came, if Nkrumah eventually take over the realms of affairs, they will be favored. And he did that. He elevated chiefs who were hitherto divisional chiefs to paramountcies. And then those chiefs who decided to fight the other way around to look for a federation, an independence for Ghana that will have a federal government like Nigeria, too, some of them were demoted or distilled. And it's a very prominent thing. Other scholars have said that, it is not a matter of Nkrumah not wanting the institution, but it's a matter of competition. These were two competing institutions. We are very new. That's why today you are asking whether we favor politicians or we favor this institution. Yeah. So that is the basis of that rivalry. Nkrumah eventually, when in fact, between 1951 and 1957, it was better because there was supervision. But after 1957, between 1957 and 1966, a renowned chieftaincy scholar, Ahin, Professor Ahin, described it as chieftaincy under attack. And then there is a whole book written by Richard Radbourne, a British professor, Nkrumah and the Chiefs, where he also alluded to the fact that the relationship had to do with animosity. Nkrumah sought to appease the chiefs who supported him, and then he demoted the chiefs who were
against him
on the other side.
And it was some chiefs in the Ashanti region, chiefs in the Eastern region, and the like. How much power have they lost now as chiefs?
A lot. We have a program on our campus we call Chieftaincy and Traditional Leadership Studies, and we are privileged to interact with registrars, queen mothers, and then chiefs. And I have told them before that they are an institution in confusion. And I think the confusion lies in the fact that they are trying to merge with an institution that they can never fit in. They have lost their judicial powers. The judicial powers of this. They've lost their economic powers to a very large extent. They've lost their political powers to a very large extent. But I believe they still have all these, just that they are following the wrong path.
What is the right path?
I told them again that if I were a chief of a very small village like this studio, I will maintain my sanctity by not taking the stipends that is coming from the government.
How do you survive then? How do
you
survive?
See, to be very honest with you, the institution have to be restudied, reoriented, because it's a new phase. If you are asking this question, immediately you started asking the audience that they should speak to this. It's something that scholars should look into. It's something that the institution should look into. I can't sit here and propose the means of survival. But I am telling you that institution can still be rich by appropriating certain level of resources in their communities, which legitimately they are entitled to. But you see, you need such legitimacy from the people, and that's what they have lost. They have lost legitimacy from the people. Most people now hold the central government responsible than holding their chiefs responsible.
Because we pay our taxes to the central government.
Exactly. If you have lost that level of legitimacy, the moment you try to win that level of legitimacy by doing the right things, and let me tell you, you can't enrich yourself by begging, and you can't perish by keeping your dignity. The chiefs, you cannot say that within the communities where they wield power, they cannot be entitled to a certain amount of the resources. And if they utilize those resources in a manner that they used to do, and still hold that institution as sacred in the manner that they used to be, and still be selfless in the manner that the institution was carved in. The institution was carved in a manner that you didn't hold personal property. I think you will win back your legitimacy.
So you're blaming the chiefs now because at least they have royalties coming in.
You know why?
Some of them sell lands, and they buy V8s and do a manner of go on trips and all that at the detriment of development for their communities.
Exactly, that's the confusion. I'm blaming the chiefs because recently they are talking about a national house of queen mothers. And you see, like trying to also get a bite of the national cake. You see, in the books, chiefs are supposed to be apolitical, but the reality is that, you see, Ahin again wrote about how the institution is still very attractive and attracting elites and what. You know, some see it as a means of getting a bite of the national cake from the central government, and that's where I see the confusion. If you try, like I said, why did I say that? Was I thinking about perishing when I said that if I were chief of this place? You see, I will not get up to shake the president if he visits my community. You see, that's institution. If I am Ali and I become the president of Ghana, my village chief, I still have to honor in a manner that I should not. The village chief should not be the person getting up to wave. Now they even wave at district executives, ministers, the president. You see, they have lost the focus. You see, if they kept the focus, even after independence, after Nkrumah's distance, if you look at the political tangent, we didn't, the historical tangent, we didn't get to the period after Nkrumah.
Yeah.
But the immediate post Nkrumah regimes, the military regimes, try to restore it to at least how it was before Nkrumah came. And the subsequent constitutions just try to keep it in the books. But what I'm saying is that if the chiefs had stayed glued, you have to have that purpose. If you don't have the purpose and then every little thing that is there you want to go and take a bite, that's where they have lost it.
So fast forward, currently the situation the chiefs find themselves in, where the Nana Makomhene described them as ceremonial figures. How can chiefs then contribute to development in our current democratic dispensation? What should they be doing? How can they help?
Yeah, I am happy we are talking about Asante here, and we are in Asante here. There was a landmark achievement in the early 2000s, when the current Otumfuo came in 1999. Very, very enthusiastic, very, very passionate about development, and he said that you've been making reference to that quote often, that now there's no war against other people.
Yeah, there's no war against other towns.
Yeah,
but it's a war on poverty, war on degradation of environment, and stuff like that. Yes.
Exactly.
And charge the chiefs to bring development to their communities.
So, in 2003, he got a grant from the World Bank. That was unusual. It was the first time. In fact, it is the first and only time something like that had happened. And the World Bank was looking for opportunities to reach out to the people because they sent the money to the central government. They did not see it getting to the roots.
Yeah.
They were looking for an alternative means of doing so, and they called the project Promoting Partnership with Traditional Authorities Project, PPTAP. And from between 2003 and 2006, it had 4 different facets. One was to build the capacity of chiefs to spearhead development, like to conscientize chiefs that they should be conscious of the fact that they are not just supposed to be ceremonial heads. You understand? If you know that you are going to be ceremonial, don't come at all. That's what Otumfuo charged them. And part of the money was supposed to build this capacity.
How much was the money again?
$4.5 million.
Okay.
It was that is for a start. that's for a start. But you see, the project was quite overwhelming. It had education components that built schools, built toilets, built masters bungalows, enhanced the remuneration for teachers in highly deprived areas. It had a component that dealt with health, like preventive health in communities. It had a component that was very significant to me, like to look around as Santiman and develop potential tourist sites to generate perpetual income.
And we have lots of them.
Lots of them. You know,
lots of tourist sites.
I was doing my service by then, so I have documentation of the outcome of that project, and I can attest to loads of potential tourist sites in Asante that was supposed to be developed. What I am saying is that, to a very large extent, they have been sidelined in the current context of politics. But if they stay put, they can attract what they have lost gradually and eventually form a kind of parallel political system, not competitive, but complementary.
So this amount of 4.5, was it used judiciously? Was it used wisely?
According to a research conducted in 2007 at the end of the project, they said that the projects were completed earlier than when the central government does them. The projects were less expensive. I can give you that document to look at. The projects were less expensive. The people were more involved. You know, according to the report after the projects, these are the things that they felt was different. But the big question that I cannot find an answer to as I sit here, that I may have to verify, is if it yielded that positive result.
Whether people felt it or were feeling it.
They said it did.
No, but
and that,
have we seen it ourselves?
Yeah, the people have seen it. The 40 communities, you know, this is not something that was done, and that's the essence of it. When we talk about development, they went to the very basics. There were communities that we traveled to. I was personally involved. That you sit in the car, and the road path is very deep, that the place is almost enclaved. And you will get down and pick a ferry. Some of the places you will have to sleep over because there was one boat that had to go. So these were remote areas. You can't sit here and know. But the outcome of the research was that it was relatively better than what the central government did with funds.
Okay.
But the big question is, then why did it not continue? I can't understand that, and I can't give you an answer to that at the moment.
All right, so it's now 8 minutes past 8, and we'll be activating the phone lines in the next 2 minutes. You can join us in the next 2 minutes, and the number to call us on is 03220-83596. In the next 2 minutes, we'll activate the phone lines. Some have suggested that, well, why don't we give chiefs some percentage from the District Assembly Common Fund? Necessary? What do you make of it?
I personally do not subscribe to that.
Okay, because you think that they can do far more for themselves.
I think that the chiefs do not need to, and that is the problem. That is where they have lost it. The chiefs do not need to get their resources through such channels. They should stay and then derive what rightly belongs to them within the communities. You see, you are the chief. You are the chief of Kase. That's where I was born, so I can speak about Kase. If I'm the chief at Kase, and they really get what I'm telling you, and you know, Kase is an industrial hub. All the companies, they do and acknowledge the traditional ruler there, and whatever they are asked to do, in order to sustain the communities where they work, the people are very willing to do. I'm talking about the companies are very willing to do. If you get resources from there, like, Amekom Hene was making reference to TEPA. You go to TEPA now and be talking about central government and be talking about the chief. He has managed, and that is what they should be doing.
The chief has managed to do a lot for TEPA.
Stay where you are. Concentrate on the resources available to you. Try to pool the resources that you are entitled to from your community, from the central government. You don't need to be begging. You don't need to work in a manner that they will buy V8 for you. You don't need to work in a manner that when you say, please appoint this my son, then they'll appoint this person from my town. Don't do that.
Okay.
Stay within your context and then appropriate the resources that you are duly entitled to and utilize it.
83596. Listeners, join us now. We'd like to have your take on it, especially all that you've heard, all the education that you've heard from Dr. Ali here. And the other question I asked as to who you trust most between the politician and the chief, who do you trust to bring us more development? Give us a call now on 03220-83596. And let's begin with Christophe. Good morning.
Hello, David. Good morning.
Hi, Chris. Good morning.
Yeah, how are you, sir?
I am well, sir.
David, you see, I think that the chiefs can do a better job than the politicians. One, because we don't vote for them, and they are with the people. They know what they want. Sometimes politicians come to give us development that we don't even want. You see? So look at the NDC and your mama. Why will you go and put airport in Ho? Because the people, they are very poor, so they don't need airport. You see? But if it is these chiefs over there, they'll be able to, look, when you go to the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, all the regions, every chief there is trying to develop his place so that they will say his region is the best. How would there be an order? So the chiefs, to me, if you should give them the opportunity, the chiefs will be able to do a better job than us. And then finally, these MPs and all that, they have terms for 4 years. So he's thinking about whether he's going to be kicked out or he'll be retained. So they'll cut corners and do all kinds of things. So they don't actually do exactly what we want them to do. So I think that when we give the chief the mandate, Brother David, they will do a better job.
I hear you. That's the thought of Christophe. What are your thoughts as well? 03220-83596. Between the chiefs and the politicians, who do you trust to bring us more development? Kofi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Brony.
And welcome.
Your question is simple. Politicians, what can politicians offer? Chiefs are more development-oriented people. And if they are empowered, they can bring development to their communities because they live with them and they know what they need. Look, the doctor or the professor in your studio talked about Nkrumah against the chiefs and the rest. Even in those days, even though Nkrumah was disagreeing and, being in competition with them, the chief still had some powers compared to presently as we speak. The 1992 Constitution plus the unanimous people out there, they have rendered the chiefs powerless, in fact, useless. Look, how can a chief summon somebody to his palace and the Constitution will say that the person can decide not to go or not to be answerable to the chief? How? How can the Constitution say this? And so the present Constitution and the unanimous people over there, those people who are unanimous, every situation they say unanimous. There's no dissenting views. Those people out there, the Supreme Court people, they have rendered the chiefs powerless. And in fact, David, as we speak, our chiefs are absolutely powerless.
I hear you, Kofi. But again, if you listen to Dr. Ali, he made mention of the fact that the chiefs themselves have a responsibility to themselves. It is what you do, as a chief in that area, that will make you get the respect you need or not? But those are your thoughts. 03220-83596. Kwame, hold the line for us, Kwame. Erasmus, welcome.
Thank you, David. Like the stock was saying, David, responsibility lies on the shoulders of the chief. That is simple. When you are chief and you get you people who are your subjects, the Sultan. But what do we see? They have corrupted themselves. And for that, it's like the respect is gone. But if they're going to get back to the days of old, at least command that respect they used to, and do away with the aspect of sometimes trying to use their powers to victimize it, I think they can do a lot than these our corrupt politicians. Thank you, David.
Well, thank you, Erasmus, for joining us. Kwame is now on. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, David.
Welcome, Kwame. Let's hear you.
Yes, David, one of the best things I've ever heard in recent times on the radio is all that Dr. Ali has said this morning. And I thank him very much for saying that. The chiefs have a lot they can offer, their communities. It is time for them to assume their natural responsibilities. You see, the politicians are in office for a very short period, and there's very little they can do to support us. I will give Dr. Ali any support he wants any day, and I will be glad to know where I can find him after this program. Any day, I will support the chiefs. I believe they have what it takes to lead us.
Well, thank you very much, Kwame, for joining us. 03220-83596. Abdurrahman, I can see your name written on my monitor here, but hold the line for me. Nana Kweku came through first, so let me speak to Nana. But Abdul, hold the line for me. Nana Kweku, welcome.
Thank you very much. You know what? Chiefs have, in fact, currently, to hold a lot of power, but they have failed in utilizing the power that they have. My friend from Ashtown, Kofi, was saying that in the Constitution, if you call it, if a chief calls or someone to the palace, the person can refuse to go. You see, I will just use this analogy to explain this. If your father is in the house and he misbehaves, if he calls his own kids, the kids will just brush him away and leave. If chiefs are to be living responsibly, utilizing the resources that they have in their communities, to not to enrich themselves, but to the utilization of all the community. If each community member is seeing something that is being done by the chiefs, not by them enriching themselves by buying V8 and everything, selling land, and I repeat, selling land of earmark for school parks and then earmark for market and then selling them and enriching themselves. If you call anyone, the person will just be, look, what have you been doing for the community? You're just a chief, so no one will even come. A chief is someone, if you're going somewhere, you are known as a chief. If you're going somewhere, it's the people behind you, the villages or the people in the community that revere you, that will call you a chief, that will make you a chief. If you are not living responsibly, they will never revere you. Just as the same thing that we have been speaking in Kumasi, things going on in Kumasi here, people bothering on waterways and everything, and no one is doing anything about it. So in that case, if such thing is happening in your community and you call me, I will not come. Because after all, you're doing nothing. Money is coming to you. You're not doing anything with it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Nana Kweku there. Michael, I can see your name on the monitor as well. So, Michael, kindly hold the line for me. Abdul Rahman is on. Abdul, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Let's hear you, sir.
Are you talking about today's chiefs or the old time chiefs? They want money. They want money for themselves, not for their people or their community. One man calling himself a chief, I'm sorry to say, a chief, you sell maybe 100 pieces of land. This is 10,000 each. You won't build a gutter. You won't build nothing. At times they sell to 2 people.
Did the line trip? Oh, goodness, no. Michael, I think we lost Michael, we lost Samuel. Do we have Samuel on the line? We lost all of them. We lost Michael, we lost Samuel as well. Apologies to all of you. It just happened. But please call us back. I would like to hear your thoughts as well. Michael, Samuel, and all the others who were on. Call us back. We'd like to hear from you. Okay. So let's bring to our listeners some of the voice notes that have come through. Let's see if the phone lines would bounce back. It does this and it bounces back and then it works again. Apologies to all of you. To all of you. So let's listen to the voice notes now.
David, good morning. This is Dr. Rakes to you. David, a discussion on the table this morning. The Chiefs, now brother, that is no-go area. These are the people. Even should they do something wrong and you want to talk about it, say, hey, we didn't anonymatem. I'm not talking about the people who insult elders, no. But you see, these are people within the communities which we all think should be doing things right first time. Unfortunately, most of them, I wouldn't say some of them, most of them we didn't do things right. And if you attempt to complain, hey, because Nananum are deemed 10 gods.
And I agree with him on that because it's a question that I have, noted here. And I think I mentioned it earlier about some of them behaving as if they are untouchables. And so if some people are suggesting that let's give them parts of the District Assembly Common Fund and all that, and let's say, for example, they should misuse it, how do we hold them accountable? But hold on the voice notes for me. The phone lines are now working again. Unfortunately, I don't have Samuel. Unfortunately, I don't have the other guys, but I have Alex on the line. Alex, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
And welcome, Alex. Let's hear you, sir.
Yeah. As for the Chiefs, please, let's not go back to that place. Because in the olden days, before somebody is installed or ensconced as a chief, they look at your qualities, what you have to offer, your person, how you have led your life over the years. Now it's not about that. It's about who has money. Those who have money will be ensconced or will be installed. So whether the person has capacity or not, it doesn't even come in. So when they also come, what is disturbing now is, okay, I use my money to get this too. I need to get my money back. So it's not a business, just like the politicians. You see, previously, people were serving in politics because they wanted to help their communities. But now it's because of money. So the politicians will also go and spend money, and then they want to recoup the money back. But in the case of the politician, he's having a short time. So he will do it more. And then the chiefs also want to go the same way.
But Alex, thank you very much, Alex. But Alex, listen, there are some exemplary chiefs. Asokremampon chief, for example. Donyina chief, for example. Nana Tepahini, for example. There are some who have, justified why they were installed. And I think that if we have all these at the back of our minds, and we choose the right chiefs, appoint the right chiefs, I mean, whether the person has money or not, we forego that and do the right things, we'll get somewhere. Michael, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And welcome, sir.
Good. Yes, some has justified the right of their existence as chiefs. No doubt about it. Majority of them has also compromised the position as chiefs. Most of these chiefs sell land. They do nothing to the community. Neither do they give a part of the money to government for development. So I totally disagree that we should pass any money from government to them. I mean, most of them won't do any good with this money in the community.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, there. Let's speak to Kwame. Do we have Kwame on the line? Good morning, sir.
Yes. Good morning. I'm here.
Yes, Kwame, let's hear you.
I wasn't privy to the earlier discussion. My contribution is based on what is coming from your listeners. But what I'm trying to say is, why should we make laws to protect certain section of leaders and not make laws to protect others. We are waiting for our chiefs to live exemplary lives and do all the things by themselves before we respect them. Have you thought of if there was no laws to protect the politicians, the parliamentarians, the judiciary, how will our system be? So it's like we've tied their hands at their back and we are expecting them to do all the things we are talking about. If there are laws that protect them, there will equally be laws that will ensure some of the responsibilities and things they were supposed to do. There will equally be laws that will see even how they are appointed. But we've rendered that institution powerless. And we want them to do all the things we are saying, looking at the olden times, what they were doing and those stuff. Those times they had the power, but they don't have it anymore. So what is good for the
goose is good for the gander. I hear you, Kwame. Thank you very much, Kwame, for joining us. And I wish we could pick a few more calls, but we can't. And for those of you whose calls were lost, sorry to you. Like Samuel and co. But we have a few more of the voice notes in, and so here are they.
David, good morning. This is Kokwa Sampana. David, you know, I am an heir to a skin, and I always pray that when I assume that position one day, I will make a great difference. But the reason why I say that is, I don't believe in this paper called constitution. I believe God entrusts people in the care of a king or a chief. The land was entrusted in them, in their custody. So when it comes to trust, a king or a chief is trustworthy than a politician being voted for. I hope you understand that. Thank you very much.
Well, maybe you're speaking like this because, like you said, you're eligible to be skinned or installed as a chief. But those are your thoughts. We've heard them, and I thank you for sharing them with us, Asampana. Let's at least bring one more voice note, just one more for now. Here we go.
Hello, Dave. Good morning. Dave, with the chieftaincy issue, it's not gonna work today nor tomorrow. Do you know something? These chiefs are very corrupt, and the politicians themselves knows it. Even when you take your case to them for them to judge for you, they know the right thing, but they will make sure you lose based on you not being able to pay whatever they ask you. There is currently an issue going on in my hometown. I don't want to mention a place because it's very sensitive. Can you believe that someone who came to ask for our stool 38 years ago, when we had no one to sit on it, is now being declared the sole owner of the stool and the town? Because of what? Because of this corruption issue that we are talking about. And now the people in the town are being tormented.
They're being tormented. I remember when we had that conversation with Nsumakwa Hene, you know, he made mention of the fact that as a chief, you have responsibilities, you have roles, and the gods watch what you do. And so I don't know which town you're talking about, but listen, maybe in due time, in due course, the gods may act. But thank you very much for sending in your voice notes. Thank you very much for calling us. For those calls that dropped, apologies to all of you. So between the two, which one do you think is better for us?
Complementary. The chiefs can never derive their powers from the central government. They should, and that is the thing I am discouraging them from doing. And that's where they are building the tangent. They are repeating the mistakes of the past, trying to create another National House of Queen Mothers. That is so petty, like looking for monthly stipends, looking for government support for other things, looking for land cruisers. You can never, please, derive your powers from where God started with.
Right. And again, as custodians of the land, if you look at the land degradation that's happening as a result of the Galamsey that we're into and all that, and chief saying that, well, it's above them because the documentations and things.
It's not true. It's not true. That's why I said their focus has misled them, trying to get a bite of the national king.
Do they have that power to be able to fight and help the battle against Galamsey?
They have not the power to just fight against Galamsey. You are picking just contemporary problems.
Yeah.
The power to make your place habitable and then to develop your place, the power to ensure the well-being of your people.
They have all that power now.
Yes.
Because again, if you listen to Amakom here talking about the fact that there are some places where they will put up some developmental projects without consulting the chiefs, and it could be that the community doesn't even need it. How can you say that, well, I was not consulted, they're going to put it up anyway, but I'm going to fight against it? What can the chief do?
I nearly did a very sensitive example, but
the voter regime.
No. Okay. Since it has come to my mind, let me say it. You see, UTAG said they went to meet the government, and on several occasions, the ministers who were really concerned about the matter, including the finance minister, failed to turn up. Why do you think the minister is not turning up? If you're a chief and they don't consult you before they do something. You see, fundamentally, if you don't tackle fundamentals, you cannot build. Africa is confused because we are building a square thing on a round foundation. You see, fundamentally, if you, like I was telling you, you said I will die of starvation, I don't have food. You see, if you do it, I'm a lecturer now. One of my principles is that I don't accept gift from a parent or a student, but I'm hungry, and I will never die of starvation. You see, if you have principles, you see, the chiefs can derive their power from their power, not from the central government, and it depends on how they do their things right. If you're a chief and they don't consult you, you will have to ask yourself the fundamental questions. Because as a member of UTAG, when the minister was not appearing, go and sit there, and the minister is not coming, I'll have to ask myself the fundamental question.
If you use fundamental about 6 times this morning, and you know what fundamentals can do. We're told that if the fundamentals are weak, so when it comes to fundamentals, I beg you, be mindful how you use the word fundamentals. But thank you very much, Dr. Ali Yakubu Nyaaba. He's a senior lecturer, Department of History and Political Studies, KNUST. We're grateful that you joined us this morning. I'm happy that even when I was on set that day, when your call came through, a message came through, I picked it up because we've learned a lot from you. And now you've thrown a challenge to the chiefs out there. It's up to them to make that institution what it used to be than what it is now. So it's up to them, isn't it? It's up to them. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, sir. All right, so in no time we'll be crossing over to